Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds on Serie A Matchday 12. Good week in general for the Italian teams in Europe, apart from Juventus, of course. Hi, Danny, how are you?
Ciao Edu, great week for Italy. Got two teams qualified already for the Champions League. Spain only got one. What's happening to Barcelona? What are they going to sell now? Anyway, then Roma won, Lazio won. And by the way, we got the ACCA in the Europa League. Well, at least I got my ACCA, right? So another one in the bag.
Exactly, because also you backed the Champions League one on Tuesday, so very good numbers recently for Danny. Let's see what Danny has to tell us about this new match day. Guys, remember, shit up before. Let's go now. Remember to leave your comments, tips, anything you want. And don't forget, if you enjoy our videos, press the like and subscribe. And now, let's go on with the show. I like this cheering animation. Danny, we have 3 games on Saturday with the big guns because they are playing again in the Champions League. Napoli, Sassuolo, 17 consecutive victories for Napoli. Amazing run. Now they can even win ugly as they won at the Olimpico with Osimhen. Is this kind of victories that can give you a title? Why not?
Yeah,
and now hosting Sassuolo also with good numbers. Sassuolo in the middle of the table. They beat Verona, both teams to score in the last 3 games. For Sassuolo, Danny, Napoli will keep like this and at least until the World Cup?
I think they do. There is no reason to think they're going to drop form. They are in that state of mind now. They don't leave anything to the opposition. The eagerness, the willingness, and the anger they got a midweek against Rangers. Spalletti left out Lozano, Osimhen, and Cravascelli at the beginning, and you see what the substitute did: 2 goals from Simeone, then a goal from Ostigard, another new goal scorer. I think they got already 16 this season, and job done. They're gonna go to Anfield. If they don't lose by 4 goals, they are top of the group, which I think they will be. 13 wins in a row in the league, in all competition this season, unbeaten in the last 15 in Serie A. By the way, this good streak started last April with a 6-1 win against Sassuolo. And incredibly, Napoli, if you compare them to last season, they are 2 points down. So last season they did even better than this season, because also they had a very, very good defensive record. What I like about Napoli is the fact that in the second half, the changes from Spalletti change the team. They do improve. If you look at the table, first half versus second half in Italy, in the second half, Napoli have got 8 more points. So they do get a lot of points in the second half. 15 goals scored from Napoli in Serie A only in the second halves. And when it comes to Sassuolo, I watched the game against Verona on Monday. They won. They didn't deserve it. Verona had a decent striker that would have won 3-4-0. They had so many chances. The one in the second half when they hit the bar, it's almost comical. Sassuolo is okay. They do concede a lot of goals. They are a bit more balanced maybe this season, but when they travel, they already conceded 7 in 5 away games. Napoli win, for sure. I think Napoli win is almost like a safe bet, 133, but we want to spice it up a little bit. Napoli win and over 2.5 goals, 199.
Corello is telling us also over 2.5 goals minimum in this Napoli game. I'm surprised also when we see the outright odds for the title, for the Scudetto, and Napoli is third, still behind the Milan teams. AC Milan is very favorite.
Well, Juventus was the favorite at the beginning of the season. Look where they are.
Exactly.
These odds, they take a lot of time, I think, to adjust. They take into consideration past form, previous years, and stuff like that. But, I always say watch the games, don't watch the numbers.
Napoli half-time, full-time for Wanchuk. Also a good one to put higher odds. Let's talk about Juventus then, Danny. Lecce, Juventus going to Puglia. Juventus out of the Champions League. Another dreadful evening in Lisbon against Benfica in Serie A. At least they beat the last 2 games, Empoli and Torino, without conceding. But a club like Juventus cannot expect Danny to have evenings like this in Europe. Awful the last 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, completely off pace against Benfica. It almost looked like they didn't do their homework very well. They don't mark, they don't press, they leave a lot of space. Benfica is a team, technically, all the 11 players, okay, 10 plus the keeper maybe, they are technically very, very good. They can cross the ball, they can hit the ball. Rafa Silva is amazing. You need to be tighter to them. You need to be a little bit more focused. And then Juventus woke up too late in the second half when Allegri made the changes, put the young players in. Really too late. I know they could have equalized, but they could have conceded 5 or 6. And is this defensive frailty, especially when they travel. Juventus so far they haven't won a single away game this season. That really is a little bit concerning. And they're gonna be in the Europa League. Are they gonna be in the Europa League though? I think this is a big question mark because of Maccabi Haifa home against Benfica. I don't think is a foregone conclusion. We'll see. I think by PSG gonna win in Turin anyway. We'll see. Juventus, they look for the third consecutive clean sheet in Serie A against Torino and Empoli. They were better, but is the away form really. They conceded 16 goals so far away in 9 games, 6 defeats away from home. And Lecce, although they took a step backwards against Bologna because they couldn't scored, and that's the first time they failed to score in 2 consecutive games. They draw 1-1 the last 4 home games. But there is a team that, despite being a little bit in trouble, I would say, as a newly promoted side, they do often score. They always score against the top sides. They score against Fiorentina, score against Napoli, score against Roma, score against Inter in the first game of the week. Everything suggests they're going to be able to score against this Juventus defense, who's also without Bremer, and it doesn't look unbeatable. For this reason, over 2.25 goals. I think the odds are very good. 196, probably because you have to take into account that Juventus doesn't score many goals. So if there are only 2 goals in the game, you lose half your stake. More than 2 goals, you win, of course, 196. So this is a little bit of a parachute if you finish 1-1 or 2-0 each way.
Lecce, they drew the last 4 at home. Black Adam is telling us Lecce, double chance. Kevin, don't trust Juve. I think we should follow this rule, don't trust Juve in this season, especially playing away. And Wanchuk is reminding us that Vlahovic is not scoring away also because he doesn't get the ball into the box, so it's also very risky in my opinion.
I mean, Vlahovic's numbers are since he joined Juventus are 17 goals in 38 games or 37, so it's basically a goal every other game. So
it's good.
He needs to get, and he scored against Benfica, to be fair. So he needs to get the ball. He needs to get more services as well, I think.
On Saturday, Sampdoria. Inter already in the last 16. They did the homework at home against Victoria Pilsen. And remember that the previous weekend we saw an amazing game, probably the best one so far in Serie A. 3-4 in the Artemio Franchi in Flores with Mkhitaryan scoring the winner. Now hosting Sampdoria, got the first victory of the season. Finally, Sampdoria, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, Danny.
And this is the return of Dejan Stankovic, one of the heroes of the triplete, to the San Siro. Now, as a manager of Sampdoria, is going to get a great welcome for sure. And Inter, finally, a normal day after the crazy night in Florence, where they were good for some spells, but also a bit worrying, a bit concerning. They do seem very, very soft to beat at the back. Inter got to the 4th worst defense in Serie A. Only Sampdoria and other 3 teams have conceded more. But against Victoria Pilsenia, they done the job. They kept the ball very well. They had a lot of possession. They knew how to exploit it. And in the end, they qualify from the group of death, basically without Brozovic, playing 3 games without Brozovic and playing without Lukaku, most of the group. And they qualified, so it's an amazing achievement. Lukaku is back, score against Victoria Pilsenia. I think he's going to play more and more minutes now. He's going to probably play the 90 minutes against Juventus following week, the big match in Italy. And I think this game for Inter is going to be very similar to the one that they had in the Champions League. They're going to have the ball a lot. They're going to probably attack with 9 or 10 men. So it's about really being patient here for Inter and finding the space against the Sampdoria side that did win at Cremonese. They didn't deserve it. Cremonese missed a penalty, missed a lot of chances. In the end, it was a late goal from Colli, and it's a Sampdoria side that under Giampaolo, they were starting games very, very slowly. They will be bottom of the table, Sampdoria, in the first 45 minutes only. Only 2 goals scored. They do get better in the second half. I think what Stankovic is doing is injecting a little bit more of urgency, anger, aggressivity. So we should see Sampdoria climbing up the table. I think they do have the resources there, considering also they haven't bought many players in the summer, so they haven't strengthened the team. But for this one, I see someone suggesting Lukaku to score. By the way, it's 173 Lukaku to score, and I like it.
A bit
Over
low,
2. Yeah, it's quite a lot, I think. But if you go for an over 2.5 goals and Lukaku to score anytime, you get 269. So for a high scoring game, and Big Rom to be on the score sheet.
No, I was saying actually that was a bit too low for me.
Too low. Okay, too low.
That price, yeah, for Lukaku to score. Wanchuk, Inter to win the first half. They will want to finish early. They are playing Bayern Munich in
a game that is
game.
completely meaningless. The Wanchuk.
Exactly. So
They
have to
go
focus
all the
in
time.
the Serie A.
They cannot finish top of the table, so they go Juventus next. I think what you said about Lukaku is right. I don't think Lukaku is going to start. So for somebody maybe to play only 35 minutes, to be anytime goal scorer could be a bit of a risk. But they play the second worst defense of Serie A, Sampdoria. So
7th in the standings, Inter, so they have to climb up. They cannot miss this one. Next game on Sunday, the early kickoff, Empoli, Atalanta. Here, I pretty much like the odds actually for Atalanta to win, 1.85. First defeat of the season for Gasperini's men at home against Lazio. But away, Dani is a very strong side, all victories but 1 draw. And Empoli is a weak team this season.
Yeah, and Atalanta deservedly beaten by Lazio, who controlled the game better. But first time they failed to score this season. Away, they've always scored. Empoli on the other side, they had chances against Juventus when it was only 1-0 to the Bianconeri, failed to convert them in the end. Empoli, always the same problem, is a bit of a young team, a little bit naive. They don't know how to defend when they are pressurized, and they end up conceding a lot of goals, despite having probably at the moment the most informed keeper in Serie A, who is Vicario. As per last season, Empoli are doing better away than at home, so maybe they're set up more to be a counter-attacking team. I think this game is gonna be very difficult to predict. So I'm gonna go for a simple one here, both to score 177, despite Atalanta having a good defensive record recently.
Arcanis is telling us perhaps too harsh with Empoli. That is a disgrace this season. Look like Serie B is not that bad.
No, I don't think so.
At home. 5 points at home against teams in the lower part of the table. It's true that they didn't compete against Juve, but they are winning some games, 2 games actually, 5 draws and 4 defeats. Worse is Cremonese, of course, the only team in Serie A without a victory. Cremonese. Udinese is our next game. Udinese also falling in the table. They were overachieving, in my opinion, in the first part of the season. Now 2 consecutive defeats against Torino in Serie A, against Monza in Coppa Italia, 4 winless games. So time for them to react in the house of the bottom of the table.
Because nothing goes their way at the moment for Cremonese. No, that's the first time in the history they have not won any single game in the first 11 in Serie A. So it really smells like relegation. Also because against Sampdoria, they should have at least got a point. But, obviously Desters missed the penalty at the beginning. Then they missed chances, missed few passes. The confidence went down. They are the worst defense in Serie A. They concede on average 2 goals per games. This is not all bad. I think they got really interesting players from Valeri to Ascasibar to Zanimacchia. I mean, they are decent, but the problem is that sometimes, the quality deserves them the last pass, the last choice, and against more experienced team, they end up losing against Sampdoria, as but they didn't deserve really. Udinese, they lost as well against Torino at the weekend. Slow start. They got caught on the break, which is a bit surprising for a very fit team like Udinese. But in the end, a great save from Milinkovic-Savic, the Torino goalkeeper. Maybe Udinese could have got a point. But okay, not to worry about it. It's a very good start of Serie A. 20 goals scored in 11 games for Udinese, only the third time in history. And as we mentioned, there are players like Beto, De Lofeu, Pereira, Nuen Perez. They do look really, really sharp and really fit. They are sixth in the away table, Udinese. 4 out of the 5 away games for Udinese so far this season have been over 2.5 goals above to score. So that could be an angle if you trust Cremonese to score at least one. The last away game for Udinese was 0-0 at Lazio, but they had the better chances. Maybe it should have been 2-2. Look at the odds for Udinese. I mean, last time I checked on Oddspedia, 193. The odds move a lot. Now he's 196, so he's even higher. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take Udinese to win at the Giovanni Zini of Cremona, 196, 193.
Indeed, very good odds. Most of the people here are also trusting Udinese. Win easily, Abedi. Udinese will want to win here, Corello. So, great odds. Let's back Udinese. Danny, next game, Spezia, Fiorentina. But Fiorentina in trouble this season. Poor start for them. We can say that already after 11 games in the conference they are doing good, but in Serie A, awful in my opinion. Only 10 points, 1 point in the last 4. Spezia very close to relegation spots after the defeat away in Salerno. Only 1 point also in the last 4. Oof, this is difficult to pick. Here, I don't like the odds for Fiorentina, for instance.
I do. Instead, actually, I do, because despite Fiorentina and Spezia have got pretty much the similar numbers, because Fiorentina is 1 point ahead of Spezia. If you look at the quality of the teams, you look at the players, you look at the strength in depth, Fiorentina is much, much, much better than Spezia. We know it. And maybe the win yesterday in the Conference League against Istanbul Başakşehir, after going 1-0 down for an awful mistake of the defense and then winning 2-1 thanks to 2 goals from Jovic, could be the turning point of the season. Look, against Inter, they were naive at the back because, after they equalized with Jovic in 93rd minute, they committed the 6 players in the attack and they got caught on the break in the 97 minutes. That's been the downfall for Fiorentina since last year. They cannot manage the moments of the games. They rush decisions. Maybe it's because of the manager Italiano, who, by the way, is a former Spezia manager. He always wants them to attack and be on the front foot, but they should have been happy with the draw. And it's why sometimes they do lose games, they do lose points in a stupid way. But if you look at the quality of the team, they should be miles ahead of Spezia. So maybe they could score a couple of goals, and I don't think Spezia have got many goals in them. Away form from Spezia is awful. They haven't scored a single goal, lost them all. At home they are decent, but they haven't played top teams yet. They played the likes of Sampdoria, Sassuolo, Empoli, Bologna. So Fiorentina is a step up, I think, from those teams. Look, I like the Asian handicap for Fiorentina. There was an Asian handicap minus 0.75, which was good. But you can even go for a Fiorentina win here, if you feel confident. I mean, 193, last time I checked, was 996. Now, obviously, the odds have come down after the win in Conference League. I like Fiorentina to win here, 196.
Actually, we can see right now in the website, in Oddspedia, 196 is the higher odds for Fiorentina to win. Most of the people are passing this game or going for a draw. Actually, dangerous one with this Fiorentina. Much more reliable Lazio Salernitana, third in the standings. You mentioned the great victory in Bergamo, also an important victory in the Europa League against Midtjylland. Last 6 games, 5 victories, 1 draw. Great job done by Sarisman. And same we can say for Salernitana. Great season, 11th, important victory against Spezia. Ribery retired. Dani watching the games from the bench. Happy in the Costiera Amalfitana. Everything is good there.
Yeah, I mean, both teams go into this game with a lot of confidence. Salernitana, because they won 2 of the last 3, and in the previous 13 games, they only won 2. So obviously they are in a good streak, especially at home this season. Salernitana making a lot of difference. They don't concede many goals. They often win 2-0, and they got goal scorers. They've strengthened the team. That's the difference, for example, between Salernitana and Sampdoria. Sampdoria have not strengthened the team. Salernitana have, with the addition, for example, of Candreva, with the addition of Abdoulaye Diaye, with the addition of Maggiore. Is a deeper squad, and you can see the difference. And I think is a team that last year they got trashed everywhere they went, even against top teams. This year is absolutely not the case. They haven't won away this season. Okay, only 3 goals scored for Salernitana in the away games. 2 of them were at Juventus in the epic game that maybe in the end Juventus should have won because it was the goal was disallowed, etc. with the VAR polemics. But now they go to Lazio. It's going to be tough because Lazio played in the Europa League, and we know the Sarri's team sometimes they don't digest very well playing twice in a week, especially the Thursday Sunday schedule. But now Lazio almost got the job done. They just need a point next week at Feyenoord. So they're going to qualify. They're going to probably qualify first. And against Midtjylland, they went behind, and then they start playing after half an hour of blackout. They start playing really, really well. Deserved win, second win in a row without Immobile. It makes them perhaps less predictable, no? Not having the number 9 with the 3 Pedro, Zaccagni, Anderson all in good form that exchange position. We saw a little bit of Cancellieri. And again, Milinkovic-Savic on the score sheet. I'm going to keep saying it until the World Cup and beyond. After Kevin De Bruyne in this moment in Europe, there is Milinkovic-Savic. For me, is the second best, or perhaps level with Kevin De Bruyne, midfielder in that position. Okay, box-to-box midfielder, assist man. And I cannot believe why top teams have not snatched it from Lazio. I'm sure next season will be the time, but it's been magnificent this season so far. Great defense from Lazio, by the way. They only conceded 5 goals in Serie A. I'm going to go for a Lazio win here and over 2.5 goals together, 258. Also because Lazio average 2 goals per game at home, and in the Europa League, they score 11 goals in 3 games at home.
Indeed, Lazio scores a lot. Also, Arcanis is saying us a very goal feast, so it looks good going for Lazio and goals in this game. And the last game we have on Sunday is Torino-Milan, second in the standings. Milan, I was surprised to see them winning so easily in Zagreb. 0-4, Leao scoring his first goal in the Champions League this season. They are in great form also in Serie A, 4 consecutive victories. And they are playing against Torino, Danny, that finally they broke their bad streak, 5 winless games, but they won at Udine. Difficult game, this one for Milan.
This is difficult because on Wednesday they play Salzburg at home. They need at least a point to qualify for the next round of the Champions League. So the mind is going to be on that. A lot of pressure on Milan as the champions of Italy to qualify for the next round of the Champions League. They cannot really pass this. They are unbeaten away, Milan, this season. Only 1 loss in 8 away games in all competition. That was the defeat at Chelsea. Against Dinamo Zagreb, a top team performance because they didn't start very well in the first 20 minutes. They picked themselves up. In the end, it could have been even a higher scoreline, 5 or 6-0. Leao, again, devastating, magnificent. Despite all the injuries, despite missing Florenzi, Clarabia, Salemakers, Diaz, who was in form and scored 2 against Monza, they still got a crucial win. Giroud back on the score sheet final as well. The return of Rebic helps them because he gives them something different. He's a player that is very generous. He moves a lot, runs a lot across the box. And Origi as well, the target man who scored against Monza. So Milan slowly getting back the best player, still waiting for Charles de Ketelaere. But because the team is doing so well, there is a little bit less pressure on the Belgian to perform. So far, it's been disappointing. But if you look at the negative notes from Milan against Monza last week, in the second half, they had some issues. They didn't control the tempo of the game as much as they wanted. And in the end, it was 4-1. But really, it should have been a closer scoreline. Monza had very good chances. They looked more in control. Maybe Milan won that game more with the individualities, with the individual players, with the skill, with the class, but not much with a team performance. And now they go to Torino. It's going to be tough because Torino is a very aggressive team. Is a team that man marks almost all across the pitch with a very high line. So they're going to be intense. Obviously, they're going to be rested. And I think they can give Milan few issues here, although Milan seem to be able to win away even when they don't play very well, like they did, for example, at Verona. But for this one, I think if you look at the odds, the win for Milan is nice, but I think it could be a slip up here for Milan, or maybe a bit of fatigue could catch up. Double chance, I like it a lot. 1x, 182. So Torino not to lose this game.
Milan to sleep. This is a tricky one, in my opinion, and also for some of our viewers. But for instance, Corello trust this Milan. Milan win either half. Black Adam, Milan to win. Tough one indeed for Pioli's men. They have an important game in the Champions League the following week. And on Monday, Danny, we have two games, Verona-Roma.
Yes.
Verona already or still in relegation spots with only 5 points, lost against Sassuolo. 6 consecutive defeats for Verona, so negative streak. And Roma, they won at Helsinki, important victory. They also have an important game against Ludogorets, of course, if they want to qualify for the Europa League. And the problem we saw against Napoli is the scoring, Danny. They were arriving around the box, but there is no one. Abraham is not the same as he was last season, although he's scoring in Helsinki.
I mean, he finished 2-1, so we got that. That was my safe bet under 3.5 goals. So I think Roma, after all, if there is no Dybala, they will really struggle to be creative. Also with the midfield of Cristante, Manetic, sometimes plays Camara, obviously missing their Wijnaldum, Zaniolo didn't play. They do miss something in the creative department, but against Helsinki, it could be enough. Against a Verona side that I think is aggressive, is getting a bit tougher now with the new manager Bocchetti, it could be an issue. Abraham scored 2 goals, is the 4 goals so far this season, so still a very low tally. Roma traveling, they are second in the away table. Normally they are very good against the small teams. We said that for the last 3 years. They've not been amazing away. 7 goals scored, 7 goals conceded, often won by a small margin. They normally tend to win the second half. Roma, they got a 7 points difference in Serie A between the first and second half. Because I think, okay, this is also when they had a deeper squad when they could make more changes. Now that it comes to Verona, as I mentioned before, they should have won or at least got a point at Sassuolo. The lack of goal scoring personalities is really worrying for Verona. They really don't have a center forward who can score in double figures. I mean, this, after all, is a team that lost Caprari, Barak, Simeone in the summer, and they haven't replaced them properly. They are second from bottom, lost all the last 5 games. They were unlucky against Sassuolo. They tend to concede a lot of goals, 11 at home, but against Milan in the last home game, I think they were unlucky, especially in the first half, to only finish it 1-1. They should have deserved more. For this reason, and because Roma got an important game against Ludogorets, they want to win it on Thursday. They want to stay in the Europa League, otherwise they go back to the Conference League, which have already won last season, so where's the fun? Verona, Asian handicap plus 0.25 in the first half, which pays 190, which means if Verona wins the first half, you win 190. If the first half ends in a draw, you win half your stake, so it's a little bit of a parachute there.
Both teams to score. For some people, Corello, Arcanis, Young likes the draw for this game. And Danny, we still have one game on Monday.
Yes.
Monza, Bologna. Monza, the defeat 4-1 in the derby. The amazing run they had is over. But at home, they won the last 2 against Juve, against Spezia. Now they are facing Bologna. They are out of the relegation after that victory, 2-0 against Lecce. And by the way, Danny, I don't know if you know that one player of Monza was in the supermarket when this bad situation happened in Milan.
Yeah. No, it's the news of the Pablo Mari, the Arsenal loanee, yesterday was in a supermarket outside Milan, the Milan area, so very, very close to Monza. He got stabbed alongside other 6-7 people. 2 of those have died. Pablo Mari is in hospital. He's not in critical condition, of course. He's got a serious injuries, but they are not life-threatening. So that's what that's the news they've been spreading. So obviously, this is something that is going to be on the players' mind. Of course, we'll hear more about it. But the good news is that obviously Pablo Mari is safe, but it's shocking what happened, and the two people lost their life. When it comes to the game, Monza, they are still an informed team, despite they lost at Milan, but I think it's because they played very open. They lost too many 1-1, but they got a lot of good quality, and they showed it in the second half. They won the last two at home, and Bologna beat Lecce, and for the first time in the last 4 games under Thiago Motta, we saw more of an attack in Bologna. We saw more of the proposition that he wants to put to the team, keeping the ball much better. Also helped by the fact that Arnautovic was back, and he scored. He scored 7 of the 12 goals of Bologna, and I think with the big man, with the target man, he's a little bit like Lukaku for Inter. He's a little bit of a talisman. The man that they look up to when they are in trouble, they give the ball to him and he look after it. So I think Bologna, they look better now, and they're probably gonna improve. Bologna is a team that concede a lot of goals in second half. In second half of games, if the games would have finished at the first half, they would be 7th in the table. Instead, they conceded a lot. So I think that's where Motta has to work as well. So the concentration, keep the concentration high for the 90 minutes. But for this one, I do fancy both to score, because I think Monza firepower it's to be really respected, and Bologna, yeah, I think with the big man at top in Arnautovic, they're going to be more of a threat against a newly promoted side anyway, although very, very experienced in their roster. Both to score, 180.
Bologna to win, Danny. Young Bologna double chance for Corello, 1x, and both teams to score. Abed is telling us, many options for this game. Monza is overperforming. Arcanis is telling us. Danny, let's see which one is your safe bet for this match day.
Fiorentina not to lose at Spezia away, so I'm going to go for Fiorentina Asian handicap minus 0.25, which pays 168.
Corello is asking me if I have Telegram. I don't, but I think we have one in Oddspedia, if I'm not mistaken, so we will share it here. And Danny, this is your safe bet, Fiorentina Asian handicap minus 0.25, and your ACCA?
5 games this week. Lecce Juventus over 1.5 goals. Udinese Asian handicap 0 as they travel to Cremonese. Lazio to beat Salernitana. Torino Asian handicap +1 against Milan. And Verona Roma first half double chance 1x. The total odds 6.64.
And Danny's on fire. Remember, he back to ACCAs this week. So Danny, why not the third one? Let's try it out. Thank you, Danny. Thanks everyone for following with us. Serie A, always very entertaining. We always learn a lot with Daniele Fisichella. See you guys next week. And don't forget, press the like and subscribe. Bye.
Ciao. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.